Hi, welcome back. I'm Tom for Tuneproducer.com. Today I'm talking with Danny Kean, piano player, keyboard player, singer, entertainer, a performer that is as comfortable as a solo artist as he is working with his trio. Welcome to Tuneproducer.com, Danny. How's it going?
It's so good to be with you, Mr. Tom.
It's awesome that you're here, pal.
Oh man, it's been too long.
So I know you were very young when you first started to get into music.
Oh yeah.
Exactly how old were you?
I started playing before I could walk. I was about 18 months when I first started playing, and my dad's uncle was a pretty important priest in Brooklyn, Father John Kean, and he took an interest in my musical thing, and so he bought me this little tiny keyboard, and my mother and father said I played scary stuff so quick, but I didn't enjoy classical stuff as much as I would have liked to, because I think music isn't really taught necessarily in a way that makes us love it. You know, we learn what we have to learn rather than making you love it. So I didn't really think I was a good student until the bug got me. And I was about 10 or 11, but I'd been playing for a long time before that. So I already had technique and all that stuff, but that's where it really engaged, about 10 years old.
I saw you at Sam Ash a number of times when you were probably, somewhere 17, 16, like that, when you would visit the store and call a place.
Mm-hmm.
And you seemed like you were pretty well into it at that point in time.
Yeah.
How old were you when you really started to get serious about music?
See, the first professional stuff I did was about 11 or 12, and then it was like, wow, you can do this. I think for guys like us, that I don't know how much music is in your family, but a lot of us don't feel like that's a thing. Like it's a thing you hear on the radio and you see on TV, but it's not really a thing you can do until you do it. And then something goes off in your head. And that's kind of how it was for me.
Isn't that amazing?
It's one of the happiest times of my life, is going, wow, it's not just a thing that other people do. It's a thing that you can do, and you can make people happy and surprise people. And for a young guy who's terribly insecure, that's a great feeling.
Sure, I would imagine it was a wonderful feeling. I know in my own case, my family was not overly supportive.
Yes, I understand.
So what are you going to do for real work?
Yeah.
What are you going to do now?
Have a backup plan. That's a word of encouragement.
Exactly.
I get where they're coming from, and they're super supportive when it really came time. But growing up, we're super sensitive to begin with, and it so insecure and unsure of ourselves, and I get it. I'm not sure what I would encourage a child to do at this point in my life, but it definitely either knocks you out of it or it makes you go head first. And I went real hard after that.
Yeah, I kind of went real hard at around 17 or so as well.
Yeah. I get that.
And you have perfect pitch. I mean, that is amazing.
It's a gift and a curse, like anything. One great thing it's good for is studio stuff. It's also really good for jazz, like angular melody and stuff that's really hard to make sense of. As long as I can remember it, I'm good. Sometimes I'll hear something, I'll know what it is, but it's committing that to memory is important. But that's where it's good. Where it's bad is if something's out, I have a hard time paying attention, like, to anything else.
You only focus
on the thing that ain't happening. Yeah. And if something,
and if you work with string players, that's like a natural.
Really hard. And the few times I've ever recorded violins and cellos and stuff, I was really, I'm sure, not their favorite person to work with.
Why? Because it was like a chorus, not a section?
Yeah. And it was really hard to get that. And it's nobody's fault. It's just the way it is.
Exactly. It's the imperfections of a stringed instrument.
Sure. And then it has a weird effect on singing. They say that the better your ear is, the more tense you grab for pitches. And I've definitely suffered from that in my life. And I'm going through so much training to master the art of loosening that. And that's really hard. If you know, we people that play primarily assume that everything's like an instrument, that if you wanna bend the string, you make it tighter, and your voice ain't like that. It's really this fluid thing that's supposed to be really loose, and it's more athletic.
Oh, very much athletic. That's a good description.
And where, you know, I could wake up at 3 a.m. and play real neat stuff, and without really thinking about it that much, no real warm up, where I spent all day on my voice trying to make sure it works the way I want it to.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that the, you know, stronger hold your ear has on you, the more that becomes a fight to the finish, and I'll keep fighting that one the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly. How old were you when you decided you could sing? Was that something that came to you very early?
I always could, and I had the little Michael Jackson voice, but again, I come from a very blue collar, quiet family, and you don't want to stand out too much.
Exactly.
And so there was a shyness or shame that I felt, and no one made me feel that way. It's just something your own feel.
Insecurity.
And it wasn't until I had to go out and make a living in my teens that I noticed I would do these jazz gigs, and they were super fun and super interesting, and people didn't care until I would sing something, and then people were into it, and I was like, you know, the bells go off in your head.
Exactly.
Like, oh, this is important, and I'm gonna have to work on it and make it as good as it can be. And I'll spend the rest of my life on that. I always feel like a journeyman when it comes to that. And people, you know, in my life have been so impressed with it, and that's so weird to me because it's the thing I work the hardest on.
Sure. And it probably gives you the most satisfaction too.
When it works, yeah.
Exactly.
When it works, I'm as happy as I'll be at anything. Where instruments, as much as I work on it, it comes a lot easier.
Yeah, well, you know, because you're doing more of a technical kind of thing. When you're singing, you're doing more work like a gymnast.
Yes, and it's very much about being loose.
Yeah.
And I don't think, you know, I do agree that playing requires an amount of looseness. It also requires, for me, an amount of tension that a lot of people probably try to get rid of. But I like a little bit of tension in my wrist that I think is good. Of course, the extremes of anything are bad, but singing is so much of a looser thing than I at least thought it was. I thought it was this, you know, you just bend it till it goes, and that works until you're about 30, and then you just got to really start messing with it to keep it going.
Well, I really didn't start singing seriously myself until, you know, not too long ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And what held you back from that?
Being insecure about my voice.
Aren't we all though?
Yeah, but it was insurmountable.
Right. It was bigger than the desire to do it.
Exactly. So, and it's funny because I started to study a little bit, and I discovered, geez, I can hit those notes.
Right. And it's such a different thing. And the hard part is that everybody wants what they don't have. I've always looked at tenors and been mad. People that, you know, when they talk, they got the Smokey Robinson voice, you know.
You mean that head voice?
No. I mean, like when you hear Stevie Wonder talk or Sammy Hagar, or they all got the thing, you know.
You're talking about the breathiness,
the height of it.
Oh,
they're starting. It's like basketball. They're starting a lot closer to the net than somebody like me.
Yeah. Well, you have a baritone voice.
Yeah. And you have to work hard to get it in other places that somebody else is just starting at.
Yeah, but sometimes our baritone voices sound so much better in the head, you know, as a head voice.
Yeah. No, falsetto wise.
It's amazing.
Prince was one of my favorite falsetto people of all time. And he had a big D voice.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an interesting, you know, thing that we're on right now about songs and, and learning them and working on them and perfecting them.
Sure.
You are an amazing singer. I've seen.
Thank you,
you know,
man.
you have a great fluid delivery.
I work on
and you obviously you're not working off of an iPad to read lyrics, but how do you maintain all of those songs in your brain?
The music's the easy part. I don't even have, there's so many songs that people will ask me for something I've never thought about singing it or playing it, and you just know it. You just happen to know that. Words take forever.
That's what I'm talking about.
That takes forever. And if I don't, the less I like it, the less I'm going to remember it.
Okay, yeah.
I have to really like something. There's so many songs that have so much, verses to them that I just happen to love. And of course, you don't have to think about that hard because you already are a fan of it.
Well, you're lucky you're not primarily a guitar player playing Dylan songs.
Oh, those are big verses.
They go on forever.
Those big verses. Who else has a lot? A lot of the standards.
Yeah.
Had a lot. Moody's Mood for Love has a lot of words to it. I never.
Do you do standards as well?
Yeah, but yeah, they're typically more less wordy than than those. But yeah, I find words challenging. Both writing them too. I find that in songwriting, it's the last thing I do, and it's the thing I spend the most time on.
Lyrics.
Yeah, because it really doesn't come easy. Sure.
When you're writing a piece of music,
yeah,
are you recording it while you're writing it to keep it in memory?
Nowadays, yes.
Yes.
Younger, no. But now they have that voice memos app.
The best, right?
And it's so cool.
Yeah.
And I've done demos for people that way. Artists will say, I want you to write something for me, and I'll just send it. I used to have to go to a studio, pay money for something that may or may not get, picked. And now you just send it. It's so cool. And you don't have to invest not only money, but production into something. A lot of times people don't want songs that are very produced. They want something that they can beat. And if you just do a real chill recording, which I don't do at all, I go to 110.
You go over
on everything.
Yeah.
But it's not very produced. It's just me playing piano or guitar and saying whatever I'm writing. But yeah, I find it really helpful, and I find it helpful. I'm doing things differently. I used to have the song in my head, and I would record it, and then I would figure out how to play it live. And now I'm trying to do the opposite of that. I'm trying to really get comfortable with what I'm writing now before I record it. And I don't know the outcome of that, but I have a good feeling about it.
When you finally hear something that you've put together, the satisfaction that when it's going in the right direction is amazing. However, when it's not going in the right direction, it can be extremely frustrating.
And there's so many times where I'll scrap a thing and just years later come back and hey, that one line was cool, and that sequence of chords was interesting. Maybe you can make a bridge out of that. And so I don't ever find it useless. But I'm jealous of people that write every day. I write because I force myself, like deadline wise, like, oh man, somebody asked for this by Friday, Thursday night. that's where the work gets done.
Oh, that sounds like a real job.
But that's who some of us are, and I'm not like that at other things in music and practice and all that stuff. But writing is a labor of love. The idea is fun. You get that on the train or in the shower or whatever you're doing. But finishing it, that's the work, man. That's
absolutely.
You have to schedule that somewhere.
Yeah. I do a lot of home recording, and it's much easier.
Oh, yeah.
And I would imagine you do a lot of recording on your keyboard.
I don't know how. I'm the most technologically unsophisticated keyboard guy.
But you like that app, though.
Yes, I do like the app, and it tells me what I need to work on, and I can listen to it from a much more objective place. And I'm not working it out in the studio. And I think it's, again, I'm new to that part of the game, but I have a good feeling about it.
Are you going to be in the studio again working on a new album?
Yeah, I think after the summer's done, I plan on having enough to go in.
Have you written it yet?
No.
The day before you.
All the things are there. I just have to finish them.
Mm-hmm. The components have all.
Yeah. I hear which ballads I want to record, and I hear the these sort of dance things, and I have some little rock things I want to do, and they're all very obvious to me. If I showed them to you, you go, that's not done, and it's not. But I hear it in a way that would let me know what it needs to be in order to be out there.
Well, I thoroughly enjoy your original tracks. I've got a number of your studio albums.
Thank you, man. That's the thing I take the most pride in.
Yeah, well, they're great.
I never planned on being a live performer, and so, I mean, I'm trying to get good at it now.
But you do it really well, and you know what really surprises me, that you do this solo act. Are you as comfortable doing that solo act as you are with the band? Because with the band, you're really comfortable.
Yes and no. The energy is different. It's much more dependent on the crowd, how the night's going to go, because you're not bouncing off of anybody but them.
Yeah.
So I'll have great nights that inspire me to do it when people are super into it, and then I'll have nights where I'm practicing in front of people, and that's not bad either, and that's a beautiful night as well in a different way. Where at a band thing, you're bouncing off of people that are looking to have a good time with you. And that energy is reflected at the crowd, and the crowd gives that back to you. And so the likelihood of having a very bright night is very, very likely. It's much greater.
You mean when you're solo?
No, with a band.
With the band, of course, yes.
You're bouncing off of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming on the audience. The audience brings that back to you. You bring it back to them. And it's this great energy. And that happens solo, but I'd say much less frequently. But I've learned my heroes, the people I really dig, a lot of them were not very sensitive to that stuff. Ray Charles, I swear, I'll tell you a funny Ray Charles story. So my dad took me to see him at Stony Brook University Stoller Center in 1994. And Ray, first of all, he comes out, a big band and a curtain, and you just hear this kind of Bud Powell style 1950s hard bop piano behind the big band, and you don't know who it is, and they pull the curtain. It's been Ray for 3 minutes blowing the craziest jazz, which I did not know he could do at the time. I know now. But he didn't say nothing about it. Thank you for being here. He didn't say, are you enjoying your night so far? He didn't introduce the hits. He just said that the band was too damn loud. And so I thought it was just a Ray being an older thing. You know, he was in his 70s by then. So years later, when YouTube came out, I would check out as much Ray as I could from the 60s in Newport Jazz Festival. And it was the same back then. And he was on the trip, and you could go with him or not. And he was on that trip. And I think that's a very admirable thing. My heroes before then and since then were mostly crowd pleasers. You know, Hendrix and James Brown and Prince and B.B. King. That's all about the audience.
Oh yeah,
and that's great too. But there is valor in both, being on your own trip and not needing that feedback, and completely being about that feedback. I haven't found the balance between those two, but I'm working on it very hard.
Well, and you do well in front of a live audience. I've seen you any number of times. You're so comfortable telling stories, and you know, I've never seen you get angry at your band.
No.
Never. I mean, you can, you know, as a musician, you can see that in a performer's face.
Sure.
But your trio, the trio I'm talking about,
with Don and
Phil,
yeah.
I've seen you folks a number of times, and it was always a nice experience.
Well, thank you. It's different when you're really close with people, and those guys are family, and it's different. Where even if I am not happy with how the night's going, I love those guys. What am I? It's probably more my fault than theirs that I'm not happy with it. So I try never to bring that on to anybody. And if you have something to say, bring it up after the gig, and you know, way after the gig.
Oh yeah. The night is
that's a sacred thing, and I learned the hard way that that's not how to handle things, both on both sides of it.
Yes, without a doubt.
I don't like people giving me stuff on the gig, and I didn't benefit from telling people what was going on the gig, and I learned that that's a really important thing, is that afterwards, days afterwards, is the time to talk about things like
You
that.
have to, nothing is just going to land in your lap. You have to
No.
figure it all out.
And we're all, the cool thing about music is that it's just like life, and you're never done learning about it and what you can bring to it and what it can bring to you. And I think it's a great journey, and it never lets you feel too good about yourself or too bad about yourself.
Thanks, Danny, for spending time with us for this in-depth look at your musical experiences thus far. I hope to follow your career as you develop as a performer and get your music out to the masses. Please stop by and check Danny at a local gig. This is Tom for Tuneproducer.com. Please like us on Facebook and YouTube. Check out our website, Tuneproducer.com, and please sign up for future notifications. Thanks again.